In the late 1940s, Katharine McCormick inherited a huge amount of wealth. She was a suffragist and had spent the last 20 or 30 years campaigning for women's rights. When she inherited this money, she had to decide where to spend it. Based on the previous videos in this course, you might have expected that we say she should spend it on interventions shown to work in randomized trials, maybe funding community activism or school-based interventions. These have been shown to effectively reduce, say, violence against women and girls. She chose to support something else. She took a bet on something uncertain, and the women around the world are very glad that she did. She poured most of her money into developing the first birth control pill. 10 or 20 years later, Time magazine put the pill on its cover. Not the woman who funded most of the research, by the way, just the pill itself. The pill quickly became one of the most popular forms of contraception, giving women unprecedented control over their fertility. But this wasn't guaranteed to pay off. Lots of research can lead to dead ends. If you're Katharine, or someone plotting a career path, how do you make decisions when the outcomes might be so uncertain? When should you bet on an unproven technology like the contraceptive pill? When should you focus on taking the safe route, like improving education? One method of making this decision is using what's called expected value calculations. Expected value calculations are a bit like trying to put a price on a lottery ticket. You take in the chance that you'll win times by the amount of money you win minus the price of the ticket, because you have to pay that regardless. Say, for example, the Powerball jackpot is $60 million US. That seems huge, except the odds of winning Powerball are close to 1 in 300 million.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
This means you only expect to win about 20 or 30 cents every time you play. But it costs $2 to play, so each time you buy a ticket, you're throwing away about $1.80. This type of thinking isn't just for gambling. More generally, expected value calculations let you compare between different options. To get the expected value, you take the probability of the different outcomes times by how good each outcome would be. This gives us how much value we can expect to receive. If you live in a democracy, there are lots of good things about voting yourself, but let's practice this idea by calculating the expected value of your vote. If it's a close election and you're in a swing area, then your chance of personally tipping an election could be about 1 in 10 million. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but governments direct a lot of money. The US government allocates $17 trillion US every 4 years. 1/10,000,000th of that is about 1.7 million US dollars. Now, if your vote gets that money spent even 1% better, then your vote has an expected value of $170,000. As you know, I will stupidly wait in a 20-minute queue for a free coffee that would otherwise be $3. But I'm also smart enough to wait in a 20-minute voting queue for an expected value of over $100,000. As we said, there are lots of other good reasons you may want to vote, and there are lots of ways of making decisions when you're uncertain. But maximizing expected value is supposed to get you close to the right answer over the long run with real-world situations. Let's try applying it to choosing how you should do good. Imagine you're an organization trying to improve animal welfare, like the Humane League. The Humane League works with companies and governments to get them to treat animals better. You're considering a campaign to lobby against battery cages for chickens. These are little cages that hens spend their whole lives in without even being able to open their wings. This would be like you spending your whole life in an airplane toilet, eating nothing but airplane peanuts. One of the best ways of freeing these chickens seems to be working with companies so they buy cage-free products. The Humane League has already helped to get Costco, Walmart, and Audi commit to cage-free in the USA. The problem is that campaigns like this don't work every single time. If you do these poorly, they might also cause a backlash against the cause itself. So if we were trying to use expected value thinking to decide whether or not we should run a campaign, the first step is to define what you expect to happen and what it is that you value. Rather than just, I think these campaigns will work, you might predict, I think campaigning against McDonald's will stop them selling caged eggs and switch to free range. Rather than something vague like, I think this will backfire, you might instead predict, I think McDonald's will react against us and run a campaign which discredits our cause. Making our predictions more concrete like this can help reduce conflict. All too often, we have arguments where people's beliefs look like they conflict, but they actually don't. You might think it'll work, and I don't, but we might both predict that there's some chance of McDonald's switching to cage-free eggs, And we might also both predict there's some chance of retaliation. So the first step here is to convert your vague conceptions of this will work or this won't work into specific benefits and risks that you think might happen. Then you can start doing the expected value calculation. Let's say McDonald's serves around 2 billion eggs every year. That works out to need about 7 million hens. Imagine there's a 10% chance of success based on your other campaigns. So if you win, you free 7 million hens times by a 10% chance of success, which is about 700,000 hens. Second, imagine there's a 10% chance of McDonald's reacting to you and running a campaign to try to discredit you. If they did, they could reduce your impact by 40% this year. So you normally free about 500,000 chickens every year. With McDonald's against you, if there's only a 10% chance of them doing this, the expected value is about 20,000 hens in the wrong direction. Finally, there might be an 80% chance of you running the campaign and achieving nothing and McDonald's doesn't react. You spend about $20,000 campaigning and you get nothing for it. So, summing across these three outcomes, you're going to spend about $20,000 on the campaign, and the expected value is over 600,000 hens protected. Even if our 10% was wrong and there was a 50% chance of Ronald taking revenge, we'd still expect to save 600,000 hens. These expected value calculations allow us to see what the outcome is expected to be, even when it's uncertain. It helps us to see if these campaigns might be a good bet. Now, these calculations are hard. First of all, the different outcomes might be in different units, so you have to convert them into something that you can compare. Second, there can be second-order consequences that might be hard to foresee. On the plus side, winning McDonald's campaign might make it easier to work with Burger King. On the negative, losing might make McDonald's resistant to other campaigns for the next 5 or 10 years. And third, it can be hard to get a probability, a number that makes sense. How do you know the chance that your campaign will succeed? Where did this 10% come from? Over the next few videos, we'll learn how to overcome many of these problems. We'll learn how to make accurate, calibrated probability estimates by getting to know a range of related tools. You'll learn how to decide if your chance of success is 1% or 10% or 25%, so you can decide if it's the right thing to try. We'll help you learn to make your numbers more accurate. So when you say it's a 10% chance, it'll happen 10% of the time. With these skills and this type of thinking, you'll know what bets you should take and why. Whether you inherit a fortune or just want to plan your career, you'll learn skills to help judge what bets are worth taking, what risks are worth avoiding, and how to properly navigate an uncertain future.